Natalie Parker stood outside the velvet rope of Sapphire Lounge, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the white sash draped across her navy cocktail dress. The words "bride-to-be" glittered under the Boston streetlights, a reminder of the commitment waiting for her in just 5 days. The autumn air carried a chill that made her pull her jacket tighter, though she suspected the cold she felt came from somewhere deeper. Inside, the music pulsed like a heartbeat. Olivia Chen, her best friend since college, grabbed her arm with infectious enthusiasm. Her dark hair was styled in perfect waves, and her smile could light up the entire city block. Olivia had planned this night with military precision, determined to give Natalie one last adventure before she became Mrs. Ryan Mitchell. The lounge interior sparkled with crystal chandeliers and intimate booths upholstered in deep purple velvet. Other women from their friend group had already claimed a corner table, champagne glasses raised in anticipation. Natalie recognized faces from her wedding planning business, colleagues who had become friends over years of creating perfect days for other couples. Now, it was her turn to be celebrated. Natalie settled into the booth, accepting a glass of sparkling wine she had no intention of drinking. Her mind kept drifting to Ryan, probably at home reviewing architectural plans for his latest project. They had been together since junior year of high school, a relationship built on shared history and comfortable routines. Everyone said they were perfect together. Everyone except the small voice in her heart that wondered if perfect meant safe. The music shifted, and Olivia jumped up with a mischievous grin. She clapped her hands to get everyone's attention, her voice rising above the noise. She announced that she had arranged a special surprise, something to make this night truly unforgettable. Natalie felt her stomach drop. She knew that tone. Olivia was about to do something outrageous. The side entrance opened, and a man walked through. The first thing Natalie noticed was that he looked completely out of place. No costume, no theatrical entrance, just a tall figure in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was styled with casual elegance, and his expression carried a mixture of confusion and slight embarrassment. When his eyes swept across the room, they were the color of warm amber, intelligent and searching. Olivia squealed with delight, assuming he was the entertainment she had booked. She rushed forward, pulling him toward their table before he could protest. The man's gaze landed on Natalie, and for a moment, everything else seemed to fade. There was something in his eyes that felt like recognition, though they had never met before. He leaned down, his voice low enough that only Natalie could hear. He apologized, explaining that he was looking for the Riverside restaurant next door for a business dinner. Somehow he had walked through the wrong entrance and ended up in what appeared to be a private celebration. His tone held genuine apology mixed with humor at his own mistake. Natalie should have corrected everyone immediately. Instead, she found herself saying something unexpected. She told him that if he left now, her friends would be disappointed and suspicious. Perhaps he could stay for just a few minutes, pretend this was intentional, and then slip away quietly. She surprised herself with the request. But there was something about his presence that felt oddly calming in the chaos. The man introduced himself as Vincent, extending his hand with a slight smile. When their fingers touched, Natalie felt a spark that had nothing to do with static electricity. He agreed to her unusual request, loosening his tie with the air of someone accepting an adventure he had not planned for. What followed was perhaps the strangest and most genuine conversation Natalie had experienced in years. While her friends laughed and took photos, convinced they were witnessing planned entertainment, Vincent sat beside her and they talked. He asked about her work. She found herself describing her wedding planning business with more passion than she had felt in months. She created moments of joy for other people, designed days where love felt like magic. Vincent listened with real attention, not the polite nodding she often received when discussing her career. He asked thoughtful questions about why she had chosen this path, what made a wedding truly memorable versus merely expensive. His own work involved venture capital and technology investments, funding innovation that changed how people lived. Despite their different worlds, they found common ground in wanting to create something meaningful. Time slipped away unnoticed. Natalie realized she had been talking to this stranger for nearly an hour, forgetting the party happening around them. Olivia eventually interrupted, pulling Vincent away for photos and more champagne. When he finally made his exit, citing the business dinner he had already missed, he paused beside Natalie one last time. He said something that would echo in her mind for days afterward. He told her that getting lost sometimes led to finding exactly what you needed, even when you did not know you were searching. Then he was gone, disappearing through the same door where he had accidentally entered. Natalie sat in the booth long after her friends had moved to the dance floor. The champagne in her glass had gone flat, but she barely noticed. Something had shifted inside her, a crack in the certainty she had built her life around. In 5 days, she would marry Ryan Mitchell. They would have a beautiful ceremony at the luxury resort outside the city. A wedding she had planned with the same precision she brought to every client's special day. But tonight, a stranger with amber eyes had reminded her what genuine connection felt like, and that terrified her more than anything else. Monday morning arrived with the weight of reality. Natalie sat in her office, surrounded by fabric swatches and flower samples for her own wedding. The encounter at Sapphire Lounge felt like a dream now, something her mind had conjured to distract from pre-wedding jitters. She had more pressing concerns, like the final walkthrough at Riverside Manor, the elegant resort where she would become Ryan's wife in 4 days. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. He would miss the venue meeting because an important client needed revisions on building designs. He trusted her to handle everything. She stared at the message, feeling a familiar hollowness. This was the 3rd meeting he had skipped this month. She typed back a simple, "Okay." Not bothering to express disappointment, he would not hear anyway. The drive to Riverside Manor took 40 minutes through autumn countryside. Trees blazed with orange and gold, their leaves catching sunlight like flames. The resort sat on a hillside overlooking a lake, all stone and glass and carefully manicured gardens. Natalie had chosen this venue because it represented everything she thought a perfect wedding should be. Elegant, timeless, impressive. She met with the event coordinator in the main lobby, reviewing last-minute details about table arrangements and lighting. Everything was proceeding smoothly until the coordinator mentioned something unexpected. The resort had recently received significant investment from a venture capital firm, allowing them to upgrade their facilities. The investor himself had taken personal interest in ensuring every event met exceptional standards. Natalie felt her pulse quicken, even before she understood why. Something in the coordinator's tone suggested this was not routine information. They walked through the ballroom where her reception would take place, and she tried to focus on centerpiece heights and sound system checks. Her mind kept returning to amber eyes and a charcoal suit. Then she heard his voice behind her. Vincent Thornton stood in the doorway of the ballroom, dressed in business casual attire that somehow looked more elegant than most formal wear. His expression shifted from professional interest to complete surprise when their eyes met. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The event coordinator glanced between them. Clearly sensing the sudden tension filling the room, Vincent recovered first, introducing himself formally as the primary investor in Riverside Manor's recent expansion. His tone was carefully professional, but Natalie noticed the way his hands tensed slightly at his sides. She introduced herself as the bride whose wedding would take place that Saturday, watching something flicker across his face. Disappointment, perhaps, or resignation. The coordinator excused herself to check on catering details, leaving them alone in the vast ballroom. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, creating patterns on the polished marble floor. Vincent walked closer, maintaining respectful distance, his voice softer now. He said he had not known this was her venue, that he had no intention of making things uncomfortable. Natalie found herself laughing, a sound edged with nervousness. She told him that life seemed determined to keep throwing them together in impossible situations. First, a mistaken entrance at her bachelorette party, discovering he essentially owned the place where she would marry someone else. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Vincent smiled, but it did not quite reach his eyes. He asked if she was happy, really happy, and the question landed like a stone in still water. Natalie opened her mouth to give the automatic yes, the response she had offered dozens of times to friends and family. Instead, she found herself hesitating, the truth more complicated than a simple answer could contain. They spent the next hour walking through the resort together. Vincent showed her recent improvements, his passion for the project evident in how he described each carefully chosen detail. He had vision for creating spaces where people's most important moments could unfold with beauty and grace. It matched her own philosophy about wedding planning. That environment shaped the emotions people carried forward. Natalie shared stories about her business, the couples she had helped, the joy of witnessing two people commit to building a life together. Vincent listened with the same genuine attention he had shown at the lounge, asking questions that revealed he actually cared about her answers. When had Ryan last asked about her work this way, wanted to understand what drove her passion? They ended up on a terrace overlooking the lake. The water reflected clouds and trees, creating a mirror world beneath the surface. Vincent leaned against the stone railing, his expression distant. He began talking about his past, words coming slowly as if he had not shared this story often. 5 years ago, he had been engaged to someone he thought he would spend forever with. She was brilliant, ambitious, everything he admired. But somewhere in the planning and the pressure and the expectations, they had lost sight of what actually mattered. They became so focused on building the perfect life on paper that they forgot to check if they still wanted the same things. The wedding was called off 3 weeks before the ceremony. Natalie listened, her heart aching for the pain she heard beneath his measured words. She asked if he regretted the decision. Vincent turned to look at her directly, his amber eyes holding hers with uncomfortable honesty. He said the only thing he regretted was not having the courage to ask the hard questions sooner, to admit when something felt wrong, instead of pushing forward because it was easier than stopping. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Natalie felt something crack inside her chest, the careful walls she had built around her doubts beginning to crumble. Vincent was not telling her what to do. He was simply sharing his truth, trusting her to know what it meant for her own situation. Her phone rang, breaking the moment. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. She answered, hearing traffic noise in the background. He was calling from his car, asking if the venue looked good. He sounded distracted, his attention clearly divided. She assured him everything was perfect, feeling the lie taste bitter on her tongue. After hanging up, she found Vincent watching her with an expression that mixed concern and something deeper. He said he should let her get back to her planning, that he had taken enough of her time. But before he left, he pulled a business card from his wallet. He told her that if she ever needed anything, even just someone to talk to, she could reach him. Natalie took the card, their fingers brushing for just a moment. She thanked him for showing her the venue, for sharing his story, for seeing her in a way that felt increasingly rare. Vincent nodded, then walked away without looking back. She watched him go, the card burning like a small flame in her hand. That evening, Ryan came home late again, smelling of coffee and stress. He kissed her forehead absently, asking if everything was set for Saturday. Natalie said yes, listening to him launch into complaints about difficult clients and impossible deadlines. She waited for him to ask about her day, to notice the turmoil written across her face. He never did. Later, alone in bed while Ryan slept, Natalie held Vincent's card in the darkness. 3 days until her wedding. 3 days to marry a man who had known her for 12 years, but somehow saw her less clearly than a stranger she had met by accident. 3 days to choose between the safe path she had always walked and the terrifying possibility that she deserved. Something more, the card felt like both a lifeline and a temptation. She tucked it into her journal, turning off the light. But sleep would not come easily. Her heart had started asking questions her mind could no longer ignore. Saturday morning dawned with pale gray light filtering through hotel curtains. Natalie woke in the bridal suite at Riverside Manor, surrounded by white flowers and the soft chatter of bridesmaids preparing for the ceremony. Her wedding dress hung near the window, a cascade of ivory silk and delicate lace that had taken months to select. Everything looked perfect, like a scene from the countless weddings she had orchestrated for other people. But inside, her heart felt like shattered glass. Olivia appeared with coffee and concern etched across her face. She had known Natalie too long to miss the shadows under her eyes, the way her smile never quite reached beyond her lips. Olivia sat beside her friend, taking her hand with gentle firmness. She asked the question nobody else had dared to voice. Did Natalie really want to do this, or was she simply afraid to stop? Natalie felt tears burn her eyes. The truth she had been avoiding, finally forcing its way to the surface. She whispered that she did not know anymore. Ryan was safe, familiar, the choice everyone expected. But when had safety become enough? When had she stopped asking if she was truly happy and started simply going through the expected motions? Before Olivia could respond, there was a knock at the door. Ryan stood in the hallway, technically breaking tradition by seeing the bride before the ceremony. But he looked distracted, excited in a way that immediately set Natalie on edge. He asked if they could talk privately. Something important had come up. They moved to a small sitting room away from the preparations. Ryan paced with nervous energy, his words tumbling out in a rush. He had received an incredible job offer, the kind of opportunity that came once in a lifetime. A prestigious architectural firm in Singapore wanted him to lead their expansion into sustainable design. The position would start in 6 weeks, right after their honeymoon. Natalie felt the room tilt slightly. She asked about her business, the wedding planning company she had built from nothing over 5 years. Ryan waved his hand dismissively, saying she could start fresh in Singapore, that this was their chance for a real adventure. He spoke as though her career was a hobby, something easily transplanted or abandoned for his dreams. She stared at the man she had known since she was 17. When had he become a stranger? Or had she simply been too comfortable to notice that he had never truly seen her as an equal partner? Ryan had always assumed she would follow, adjust, sacrifice, because that was what couples did, he said. They made compromises. Natalie's voice came out steadier than she felt. She told him that compromise meant both people giving something up, not one person erasing their life for the other's ambitions. Ryan looked genuinely confused, as though he could not understand why this would be a problem. That expression, that fundamental inability to grasp what he was asking, made everything crystal clear. She took a deep breath and spoke words that terrified her. She could not marry him. Not today, not like this, possibly not ever. She loved him, but she had confused history with compatibility, comfort with partnership. They had grown into different people who wanted different things. And she refused to spend her life making herself smaller so he could feel bigger. Ryan's face cycled through shock, anger, and finally indignation. He accused her of ruining everything, of being selfish, of throwing away 12 years over cold feet. His words were designed to make her doubt, to pull her back into line. But Natalie stood firm, feeling simultaneously heartbroken and freer than she had in years. The next hour passed in a blur of difficult conversations. Natalie spoke with both families, with guests already arriving, with vendors who would need to be paid despite no ceremony happening. Olivia stood beside her through every painful moment, handling logistics while Natalie handled emotions. The day that was supposed to be the happiest of her life became the day she chose herself instead. By late afternoon, the resort had emptied of disappointed guests and confused family members. Natalie sat alone on the terrace where she had talked with Vincent days before. Still wearing her robe over her slip, her hair half-styled for a wedding that would not happen. She stared at the lake and wondered if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life or the bravest decision. She heard footsteps behind her. Vincent appeared hesitant and concerned. The resort staff had told him what happened, and he wanted to make sure she was all right. He held no expectations, offered no judgment, simply his presence if she needed it. Natalie started crying then, all the emotion she had been holding back finally breaking free. Vincent sat beside her, not trying to fix anything or offer empty platitudes. He just stayed, solid and real, letting her grieve the ending of something that had once meant everything through her tears. She told him she was terrified. What if she had given up something good because she was chasing an impossible fantasy? Vincent took her hand gently. He said that wanting partnership instead of compromise was not a fantasy. Wanting someone who celebrated her dreams instead of dismissing them was not asking too much. She deserved someone who saw her completely and loved what they saw. His words wrapped around her broken heart like a bandage, not healing the wound immediately, but protecting it while it mended. They sat together as the sun set over the lake, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Natalie felt something shift inside her, grief mixing with possibility. 6 months passed like pages turning in a book. Natalie threw herself into her business, She flourished without the distraction of a relationship that had been slowly draining her energy. She planned weddings for couples who radiated the kind of connection she had once thought was only for other people. And slowly, carefully, she let Vincent into her life. They built something real. Based on genuine respect and shared values, Vincent supported her ambitions, celebrated her successes, and challenged her to dream bigger. Natalie discovered what it meant to be with someone who was truly her partner, not someone she had to shrink herself to fit beside. One evening, Vincent took her back to the terrace at Riverside Manor. The resort had become a place of transformation rather than lost dreams. He dropped to one knee, holding a ring that caught the fading sunlight. He told her that he had fallen in love with her courage, her passion, her heart. He promised to spend every day worthy of the trust she placed in him. Natalie said yes through happy tears, knowing this time she was choosing love that saw her fully. This was not safety or comfort or expectation. This was the terrifying, exhilarating, absolutely right decision to build a life with someone who made her more herself, not less. Sometimes the wrong person walks through the door, so the right person knows where to find you. Sometimes getting lost leads exactly where you need to be. And sometimes the greatest love story begins the moment you find the courage to choose yourself first.